The night was crisp, the stars twinkling overhead like diamonds scattered across a velvet sky. The campus was quieter than usual, a soft murmur of wind rustling the leaves of the trees, the occasional footsteps of students walking to and fro in the distance. But for Matt, the world had never felt so still, so full of possibility. Tonight was the night. He had made up his mind. He was going to make things right, once and for all. No more hesitation, no more second-guessing. Tonight he would tell Noah how he truly felt. Matt had always been the confident, charismatic guy, the one who could charm anyone with a smile, the guy who had the world at his feet. But when it came to Noah, nothing had ever felt so important, so overwhelming. Their past had been full of misunderstandings, missed opportunities, and unspoken words, and Matt wasn't about to let that define them any longer. He had spent days planning this moment, perfecting every detail, ensuring that everything would be exactly how he wanted it. The first step? A message that Noah couldn't possibly ignore. Matt stood in front of the entrance to Noah's dorm, a piece of chalk in his hand. He glanced around to make sure no one was nearby, then crouched down to begin his task. He'd chosen a simple yet powerful message, the same words Noah had spoken to him years ago, but this time there would be no hesitation, no confusion. This time it would be clear. "I like you," Matt wrote in big bold letters across the sidewalk, leading up to the entrance of the dorm. The words stood out against the gray concrete, as if calling out to the world, a declaration of everything he had been too afraid to say in the past. His heart pounded as he stepped back, taking in the sight of his work. It wasn't just about the words, it was about the gesture. This was his way of showing Noah that he wasn't just sorry for the past, but that he was willing to fight for the future. And this was just the first part. After finishing the message, Matt quickly made his way to the florist's shop. He had planned every detail of this confession, and no part of it could be incomplete. He walked into the small, cozy shop, its windows fogged with the warmth inside, the scent of fresh flowers filling the air. He approached the counter where a florist was arranging a bouquet, a small smile on her face as she noticed him. "How can I help you?" she asked warmly, her hand still working with the flowers. "I need a bouquet of peonies," Matt said, his voice steady but tinged with an undercurrent of nervousness. "A big one, as big as you can make it." "Peonies?" she asked, raising an eyebrow. "That's quite the choice. Are you trying to impress someone?" Matt chuckled softly, a slight blush creeping onto his cheeks. "I guess you could say that," he said. "I've got a lot to make up for." The florist smiled knowingly and began picking out the most beautiful peonies she could find, arranging them carefully into a large bouquet. As she worked, Matt found himself lost in thought. The gesture, the flowers, the words, none of it would matter if Noah didn't feel the same. But deep down, Matt had a feeling that Noah still cared. He had to believe that. When the florist finished, she handed him the bouquet, wrapped in soft tissue paper. Matt's heart skipped a beat as he took it in his hands, feeling the weight of what it represented. These flowers weren't just flowers. They were an apology, a confession, and a promise all wrapped into one. "Good luck," the florist said with a wink, and Matt smiled in return, clutching the bouquet tightly. Matt walked back to the dorms, the bouquet in one hand, the chalk message in the other. As he approached the entrance, he saw Noah standing there, his backpack slung over one shoulder, his expression unreadable as he stared at the sidewalk. The message Matt had written earlier glowed softly in the dim light, and Noah's gaze slowly drifted down to it. Matt took a deep breath, his heart racing in his chest as he walked up to Noah. He stood there for a moment, trying to steady himself, knowing that the next few minutes would change everything. Noah turned his head, his eyes locking with Matt's. There was surprise in his expression, mixed with something else, something softer, something that made Matt's pulse quicken. You did this?" Noah asked, his voice quiet but tinged with disbelief. He glanced at the words written in chalk, then back at Matt. "You really like me?" Matt smiled, stepping closer. Yeah, he said softly, his voice full of sincerity. I do. I've always liked you, and I know I screwed things up before. I know I hurt you, but I can't keep pretending that I don't want to be with you, Noah. I can't keep pretending that I don't love you. Noah's breath caught in his throat, his eyes widening as he processed the words. His lips parted, but he didn't speak right away. Instead, he glanced at the bouquet Matt was holding. Slowly, he reached out, taking the flowers from Matt's hands. The soft petals brushed against his fingers, and he looked up at Matt, his expression conflicted. You love me? Noah repeated, as if testing the words, as if he needed to hear them again to believe it. Matt nodded, his heart in his throat. I'm not asking for a second chance, Noah, he said, his voice steady, despite the storm of emotions raging inside him. I'm asking for forever. I don't want to live with the regret of not being with you any longer. I don't want to waste another second pretending that I don't care. Noah's eyes softened, his grip tightening around the stems of the flowers. He took a small step forward, closing the distance between them. Matt. His voice was barely above whisper, but the emotions behind it were clear. There was relief, there was happiness, and there was something else. Something deeper, something that Matt had been waiting to see for years. I'm sorry, Matt said, his voice thick with emotion. I should have said this a long time ago. I should have never let you go in the first place. Noah shook his head slightly, a small, soft smile on his lips. You were scared. I get it. I was dumb, Matt replied with a small chuckle, trying to lighten the mood. But I'm not scared anymore. I'm done being scared of what could go wrong. I just want to be with you, Noah. Please. There was a long silence, just the two of them standing there under the stars, the quiet night surrounding them. Then Noah slowly raised his hand to Matt's cheek, brushing his thumb across the skin there, his touch gentle, tentative. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. I've been waiting for this, Noah whispered, for you to say this, for you to finally figure it out. Matt's heart soared at the words, and before he could stop himself, he reached out, cupping Noah's face in his hands. So, is that a yes? He asked, his voice filled with hope. Noah didn't answer with words. Instead, he leaned in, closing the gap between them. And when their lips finally met, it was everything Matt had dreamed of, soft, slow, and full of warmth. The kiss was gentle at first, as though neither of them could believe this moment was actually happening. But as they melted into each other, it deepened, a flood of emotions pouring out in that one kiss, the relief, the joy, the promise of something new. When they finally pulled apart, Matt rested his forehead against Noah's, both of them breathing heavily, their hearts racing in sync. So, Matt said with a grin, his voice low and teasing, I guess that means we're together now? Noah smiled, his eyes sparkling with something that Matt hadn't seen in years. Yeah, he said softly, we are. And under the stars, with the city lights twinkling in the distance, Matt knew that this was just the beginning. Their future was waiting for them, and this time he wasn't going to let it slip away. The weeks that followed were like a dream Matt could hardly believe was real. After that night, after the grand confession and the kiss that sealed everything between them, Matt found himself in a whirlwind of emotions. Every moment with Noah felt precious, like something he needed to savor and protect. They were no longer just two people caught in a mess of misunderstandings and missed chances. They were a couple, and it felt like the universe had finally aligned to give them this chance, this time to make things right. Matt had always been someone who believed in grand gestures, but in the days after Noah had agreed to be with him, he realized it was the small things, the everyday gestures of affection, that made all the difference. He knew Noah needed time to adjust to the new reality, to accept that Matt was serious about him, but Matt wasn't about to give up on him. Every morning he was the first one to show up with coffee in hand, offering Noah his favorite blend from the small cafe near campus. The scent of freshly brewed coffee and the warmth of the cup in Noah's hands became part of their daily routine. It wasn't extravagant, but it was always thoughtful. Matt made sure to always have a note tucked into Noah's bag, sometimes with a simple, "Good morning, beautiful," or a playful, "You're still my favorite person in this world." It was those notes, written in Matt's messy handwriting, that made Noah's heart flutter. They weren't long or complicated, but they carried meaning, a quiet declaration of Matt's growing feelings. Noah had tried to resist at first. He wasn't used to all the attention, especially from someone who had hurt him in the past. But the more Matt spoiled him, the more he realized it wasn't just about the gifts or the gestures. It was about Matt showing up every day, proving through his actions that he wasn't going anywhere. Each gesture made Noah feel seen, cherished, and, most importantly, safe. It was like Matt was slowly rebuilding Noah's trust, piece by piece. One afternoon, Matt surprised Noah with a picnic date. He had planned it down to the last detail: sandwiches, fruit, and even a small blanket to sit on. They walked through the campus park, side by side, hands brushing occasionally, but not quite holding yet. The air was warm, with a slight breeze, and the smell of fresh grass and blooming flowers filled the air. They found a quiet spot under a tree where the sunlight filtered through the leaves, casting dappled shadows on the ground. "I didn't expect this," Noah said as he sat down on the blanket, a smile tugging at his lips. "I thought you were just a coffee and notes kind of guy." Matt grinned, leaning over to unzip the picnic basket. "There's a lot more to me than that," he said, his eyes sparkling with mischief. "I'm full of surprises." Noah rolled his eyes playfully. "I don't know if I can handle any more surprises from you." "Oh, you'll survive," Matt said, handing him a sandwich. "You just have to get used to the fact that I'm not going anywhere, ever." Noah's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't deny it. Matt's words, the sincerity in them, made him feel something deep inside. It was hard to explain, but in that moment under the shade of the tree, with the picnic spread out before them, Noah realized how much he had missed the simple act of being cared for. He looked over at Matt, who was now digging into his own sandwich, the familiar teasing glint in his eyes. For the first time in a long while, Noah felt truly happy. Their relationship was still new, still fragile in some ways, but as the days passed, it grew stronger. They started holding hands on campus, walking together between classes, ignoring the whispers and smiles from their peers. There was something exhilarating about it, something so right about being with Noah, even if it made some people raise their eyebrows. They couldn't help but smile when they caught each other's gaze, when their fingers brushed and intertwined, when they found themselves stealing kisses in quiet corners of the campus, hidden from prying eyes. But they were happy, and that was all that mattered. It wasn't easy at first. Being out in the open with their relationship meant dealing with the judgment and gossip that often followed. But Matt was more than willing to face it. He was determined to show Noah that nothing, no one, would come between them. If they had to deal with the whispers, then so be it. He wasn't going to hide anymore. Not from Noah. Not from anyone. One afternoon, as they walked hand in hand across the campus quad, a group of students passed by, giving them curious glances. Matt noticed Noah's hesitation, his gaze flicking away, but Matt just squeezed his hand, pulling him closer. "Hey," he said, his voice low but reassuring. "Don't let them bother you. They're just jealous." Noah laughed softly, shaking his head. "You really think that?" Matt winked. "You're with me now. Why wouldn't they be jealous?" Noah smiled, warmth blooming in his chest. For the first time, he didn't feel self-conscious. He felt proud. Proud to be walking beside Matt. Proud to be with him in a way that was finally real. That evening, after a long day of classes and studying, Matt invited Noah to join him for a walk to the nearby hill. It was a spot they had visited together a few times before, but this time it felt different. This time, it wasn't just another walk. It was a chance to reflect, to be together in the quiet peace of nature, away from the noise of the world. As they reached the top of the hill, they sat down on the grass, the cool evening air brushing against their skin. The sun was just beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the sky. The scene was picturesque, the kind of moment people only ever dreamed about. Matt leaned back against the grass, his arm resting behind Noah, and they both stared out at the sunset, the world around them fading into a soft golden haze. Noah let out a contented sigh, his eyes closing for a moment. "It's beautiful," he whispered. "The sunset. It's like everything is finally falling into place." Matt nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "Yeah," he said softly. "It's like we're finally where we're supposed to be." There was a long pause, just the two of them sitting together, the world around them, feeling like it belonged only to them. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like nothing could ever tear them apart again. Noah shifted slightly, his hand reaching for Matt's, his fingers intertwining with his. He turned to face Matt, a soft smile on his lips. "I'm glad you came back for me," Noah said quietly, his voice filled with a sincerity that made Matt's chest tighten. "I let you slip away once," Matt said, his voice thick with emotion, as he squeezed Noah's hand. "Never again." Noah's heart skipped a beat. It was everything he had wanted to hear, everything he had needed to hear. Matt had made mistakes, but now, as they sat there, under the fading light of the sunset, Noah knew that their love was real, that they had a future together. "I'm not going anywhere either," Noah said softly, his eyes locking with Matt's. "I'm here, for good." And with that they shared a quiet kiss, a promise, a vow that this time nothing would keep them apart. The sky had darkened by the time they stood up, but the warmth of their connection lingered, like the soft glow of the sunset that had just passed. As they walked back down the hill, hand in hand, Matt knew that their journey was just beginning. They had been through so much, and yet here they were, stronger than ever, ready to face whatever the future held. With Noah by his side, he felt like he could conquer anything. And as they walked together into the night, Matt's heart was full of love, full of hope, and most of all, full of the certainty that they had found their way back to each other, and nothing would ever tear them apart again.